What's a living wall? What's a green wall? Well, for me, historically, a green wall was probably you would have seen in your grandparents' house. It's where ivy or Boston ivy would naturally climb up and over a building or over a structure. That's technically a green wall. But how do we modernize? How do we modernize a green wall? Well, one way to modernize a green wall would be we can install like a stainless steel wire trellis across the facade of any building. At the base, we will install planters, or we will have a flower bed. Inside, we will install climbing plants. Now, the wonderful thing about installing a wire trellis is it creates a gap between the plants and the building itself. So there's very little fear of plants damaging the building. And by having a wire trellis to support climbing plants, there's a huge variety of plants which you could include. So when people opt for this, we have to understand, one is the wire trellis will be a necessity, and two, we need to be able to plant into something, whether that's a flower bed or into a planter. And if it is a planter, I would strongly recommend that some sort of irrigation system is included, especially in a commercial project. If it's a private domestic, just that the homeowner is aware that that planter may not absorb all the water which those plants absolutely require. So another version of a green wall or a green screen may come in the form with what most people commonly call ivy screens. Correct name would be a pre-grown screen, because there's lots, although ivy makes up the vast majority of these pre-grown screens, there are other plant species which we can choose. So these would be a metal mesh, normally roughly about 1.2 meters wide, about 1.8 meters tall, and it's in a grid formation. Little baby ivies are planted at the base, and over time they're trained to grow up and completely cover these screens. So we could have a selection of screens delivered to site. A trench is dug. We place each screen into the trench, and we may or may not have timber posts to support those screens. Again, I would advise on a single line of irrigation to go across the top. But over time, these green screens can naturally grow up and surround the building. They're not normally placed in that situation. The most common situation would be, for the want of a better description, your garden fence. Rather than having a timber fence, you could have a live barrier, a live growing medium, to separate your boundaries. And using ivy, ivy is a wonderful plant in terms of sequestering air pollution, trapping gases, trapping particulates, but it's also wonderful for biodiversity. So we could swap out a timber fence and have something which is absolutely wonderful for the environment.